Welcome back to the PHENIX Investigations podcast. We got another good episode today. We have Janet Henson, Director of Surveillance, and Ains Dusold, a Senior Investigator and Asset Search Specialist. Welcome back, guys. Appreciate you making time for us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Absolutely. Love to be here.
So a lot of times on these episodes, we end up talking about how a case comes in looking one way and it turns into a bunch of different paths. So we want to talk about today a specific case that happened recently that came in as a straightforward locate a person and turned into a lot more. So you want to just kick it off with how this case started?
Yeah, Janet, I'll start out. It came to me first from Brian. He called me up. He said, "Hey, you're going to get a kick out of this. I've got a locate investigation where we need to identify who someone is. We know, a few things about them, but we don't know their real identity." And he was like, "Here's their Twitter handle. Here's a picture of their backyard with a pool in it and a picture of a jumpsuit hanging in the backyard. Please identify who this individual is." And,
Not a
looking
lot to
back,
work with.
yeah, looking back at this case, this was a couple years ago. I think I started out with the mindset of like, this seems impossible a little bit. I felt a little over my head. It turned out great. We had a great outcome. So it was a little bit of a wild ride in between. And after about a month of really trying to figure out who this individual was, I pulled Janet in to lever her expertise in trying to find someone. So,
And at that point, you found the photo of the eyes, right?
yes. So this person also was not posting a full image of themselves. They would block their eyes out. They would post pictures of their body, but never like a full face. So that also made it that much harder because then you can't really use facial recognition technology. So at one point during we're monitoring this social media constantly, we'd found other social media connected to this handle for Twitter, and eventually this person did post an image of their just of their eyes. And over time, I mean, this was months of monitoring this social media, little things kept getting slipped. Locations that they would frequent, and we were in a bigger city, so I mean, trying to narrow down where this person was, what side of town they were on, even was difficult. And eventually, they posted that they got pulled over. They posted snippets of images of where they worked, and eventually we were able to use some of those images to really pinpoint their work location, and then also they were in the process. This person was moving. You'd be surprised. You think you're posting something very anonymous or very cryptic to social media, and you get enough of that information, and we're going to be able to track something down. So they posted the model images of the inside of this apartment complex they were going to rent, and it turned out to be a huge complex. So we're getting closer and closer and closer. And, I remember talking to Janet during this time. I'm like, I just want to find this person. Now it's personal. I've invested so much time in trying to find them.
That's obviously a wild story. Going back to the very beginning, obviously you guys do a lot of locate a person cases. How often is it that you don't know the person? Is it almost every time it's, this is a person I want to find, but I can't find them?
I would say usually we put a name. Usually we have a name.
Something. Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, that's really wild. You mentioned facial recognition software. Is that something that blows the case open for you frequently?
It can. I've definitely had it assist a couple of times where you're trying to find something else that will help you pinpoint where someone is, who they're interacting with. I've definitely had it make or break a couple of cases for me.
That's awesome. So You see these eyes. I just cannot get over how wild it is that people who are up to no good are posting actively on social media, telling on themselves time and time again. But what happened after the eye pick?
Well, to add some additional backstory, that the more we got into this and the better I got to know this individual without knowing who they were, it became very clear that they were kind of like anti-government, and they were already someone who would never want their real name put out there. They weren't going to be the type of person who had traditional social media or traditional things tied to them. They were actually into like printing 3D print like weapons. So, which very interesting. I didn't really know that that was a thing. Like my mind doesn't go there, but that's like a huge thing right now that, different states are trying to make laws on. And so
Heard
it
of these
just added like a
ghost
layer of
jobs.
complexity to this. But eventually what we ended up doing was going out to where we believed this individual was working, and they were working overnight. So that also adds more difficulty because then there's no one around really. But we ended up identifying them, locating them, following them back to where they lived, and then we were able to ID them from there.
So, Janet, when that hits your desk, what information are you working from at that point?
Um, I had what she obviously found, and by this time, I think we knew where she lived. And then we started watching and her gym, right? Like the name of the gym, but we didn't know what branch she went to.
Mhm.
And then one night, she had posted a photo of herself at work, but not of herself, but of the background. And it was a trash can, a hallway, and then another picture of a robot. And we're like, this robot has to be popular. And we're like, let's search the internet for robots down in this area. So
Mhm.
it had a name on it. And so we looked it up and we found out where this robot roamed around.
Well, and it
And
was like a
that's
little
how we were able to
security
find out
robot.
where the person
Yeah.
worked.
And then I think I remember us kind of brainstorming through this. Why is this person at this location at night when there's no one there? All
Mhm.
the trash cans were pulled out in the hallway in the photo. So we just ended up making the reasonable assumption that she was working there overnight,
Yeah.
like as a janitor or something. So
Did that end up being the case?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the overnight janitor printing ghost weapons?
Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah, now that
guess.
you put it
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
So who is the person that made this initial outreach to Brian that said, like, what is the reason that this person was to be located? Who was looking for them?
It was civil matter to deal with like harassment. So this individual was, allegedly harassing our client, and so they, in order to like do the cease and desist and go through that whole process, they would have to serve the individual, and you can't do that without identifying them.
Oh, so it was like a case of anonymous online harassment trolling.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we might have
Threats,
had
all
like
sorts of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like competing businesses or something to that degree, and there was harassment involved. Yeah.
Is that something that happens frequently in your business, that someone is involved in some sort of civil matter that's tough to deal with like what are police going to do with
Oh
a
yeah.
Twitter handle? So the natural next thing is to go to a firm like yours.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How often are your cases, and I know that you get a range of private individuals and families that come to you for a number of different, needs. How often is it that they have something going on that's worrisome or scary or emotional that just the police are not going to be able to take action on?
Often. And you'd be surprised at what it is or what kind of subject the person is or whatnot. I can give you an example of one. We got a call for a hostile patient at a hospital. And we ended up having to do surveillance on the person, the doctor, and the mom. of the doctor because the patient threatened the doctor and the doctor's mom. So we ended up doing surveillance just to make sure that person didn't go and hurt the person. Yeah.
It's really interesting how, like your business really is, you're gathering information and solving problems and you try and fit them into these buckets, like I'm going to locate a person, I'm doing surveillance, I'm doing asset search and background profiling,
Mm-hmm.
but often it's all of those things together.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it really is. Yeah.
So I know you have kind of like entry level products sort of for like your basic stuff, like Ange, I know you have sort of this is our our starting asset search that's you know what to expect out of it and it's easy to explain. When
Mhm.
you have these things, what is the expectations you set with the client that come in where right off the bat this is a weird one, we don't have anything on this person? How do you start that case with the client?
So, this actually truly did just start out as a basic 9.95 locate, which is our flat rate fee for a locate. Now, when they're more difficult or when we're aware of this type of situation, we usually do let the client know that, this will most likely start out as a retainer. The 9.95 is the retainer part, and then we will communicate with you step by step as we need additional hours. So this case is the perfect example of um, one where most people would just give up. Like the client would think this is impossible. They'd spend a couple $1,000s and think, I just can't do this anymore. That always also depends on how worth it is to them. But also on the investigator side, I could see people saying, no, we can't do this. This is not feasible. It's going to take too much time or it's
Mhm.
impossible. And like I told you, my mindset at the beginning was like, is this doable? But persistence is key. It took probably, I think I had begun it in April, and it wasn't until like the end of August or September when we'd actually made the contact to get her served. So it was a long time.
Well, I know, and Jan, and I know you're, decades of experience in this industry. It sounds like to me that your typical investigative firm, it's easy to take in information, type something into some databases, put it in a report and send it off and then send an invoice. Is it just some firms don't want to take cases that they know are more complex than typing stuff into fields and then putting a report together and sending it off?
Yeah, and some firms like to think that investigation is just that, entering a name, getting that, report that says the basic stuff, then they take it and they type it up and send it off. But that's not investigating. You're
Mm.
supposed to use that information to investigate. So, and that's
How,
where we start.
obviously, like a lot of the service business and why more experienced firms and firms with bigger resources are able to do better is because a lot of the work is just smart, experienced people thinking through the problem. How conscious are your clients that a lot of what they are paying for is not only you have access to tools that other people don't have and you have these resources, but you're just paying for smart, experienced people to think through and solve complicated problems.
Yeah, a lot of clients are like that. That's actually how the case that we're doing with a missing person. The parents just want our expertise on what we have seen throughout the years of, different situations that they should what they should worry about. Does it look like they're doing this, type of thing.
I mean, I can't imagine a case with a more sort of blank check budget and emotionally driven than a missing child.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
is that generally, I know it's kind of a hot button emotional thing, but I assume that for those, the police are involved and they're doing what they do, and I'm sure the parents never think that it's enough. Are they going to you guys to work in parallel with the police to find this? And do you ever interact with the police investigation on those?
Sometimes, it really depends on the officer that was assigned the case because they're not always willing to work with a PI. It's kind of a competition. They
Mhm.
don't want the PI to make them look bad type thing,
Yeah.
so if that ends up being the case, then we just, do our thing. But a lot of times, the departments are so short staffed. A lot of cases get deemed runaways and they'll return. And so they don't really do a whole lot for the family. And then the family picks up on that and, they can't sleep. They're worried. And that's when they call us because they know we're out there. Yeah, we'll go. We'll work around the clock.
So you will collaborate with some police departments?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's I always have to reference media that I see. My wife and I used to watch a show called Big Sky, and the private investigators were always in the police station pounding the table to go do more and press it harder, which I don't see happening. Does that happen in reality?
It has for me in the past. Yeah. I have had to go into a police department saying, no, I need help now. This is where the person is, so yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. So you can
Mhm.
be sort of an advocate for the client in that regard too.
Yeah. And
That
you just say things like, I'd hate to just get to the media, or whatnot that, I'm here. I found the child and you're not helping. You just need to know what to say.
And
But
that's not something that people would really think of for that a private investigator would do. It's just exercising. Experience tells you what leverage you have in those situations, and obviously it's a veteran move to lay out the media conversation,
Mhm,
because nobody wants to look stupid, to your point
mhm,
earlier. Yes, it's a competition, and it
mhm,
shouldn't be. We should just be outcomes focused, but again, no one wants to look bad.
yeah.
Interesting. Um, what's the most, what's the most unusual interactions you've had with police in an investigation? Just out of
Um,
curiosity.
Well, I've had them, come out on a case and make you get out of the car, want to check your car out, and, even though you call in a code 5 or whatnot, they still get curious what you're doing, especially if you're in a neighborhood where an officer lives. They automatically think you're following them or whatnot, and they'll come and, take you out of the car, try to figure out who you're following. And, but for the most part, I've had great experience with them.
Yeah, I mean, you're
There's
playing for the
always one, you know,
who. For those who don't know, what is a code 5?
um, a stakeout.
Okay, so
Mhm.
you like when you're doing a stakeout, you're alerting the police that you're doing that because it looks unusual.
Yeah, in the event somebody calls in the neighborhood, sometimes you have those people who stay home and, that car's not supposed to be there. And, I give it to them. I would know if there was a weird car sitting in my neighborhood for
Mhm.
14 hours, so, you try not to be seen and, but sometimes you are. And, you don't want the police to come out because that even makes it more noticeable.
Right.
So if you're in an area or whatnot, you just call in a code 5 and let them know you'll be in the area.
Okay, so that's just part of the planning and strategy process for these surveillances. Um, what was the client reaction after you were able to solve this case?
Oh, they very happy. Yeah.
Very happy.
What was the ultimate end? Were you serving the client? Were you what was the outcome?
Yeah, so I mean, it started out as the locate. There was a lot of surveillance involved, and then there were two separate serves because I believe there were two like separate civil matters related to this case. And then, we don't always get to know the outcome um, of what happened. So, I mean, the client was able to move forward with what they wanted to do civilly, and they were happy that we stuck with it and, identified the individual.
Do you remember what the reaction of the perpetrator was when you served them papers? Like I'd have to imagine that the
No,
way people act on the internet, they act like they're never going to be connected with a real person.
right. I think there was some
Shock.
shock,
Mhm,
but I also think um, whatever came of the civil suit from being served, like a lot of stuff was deleted off of social media.
mhm.
So we
That's
had also, that's part of it, is keeping good record of what was there when someday it might not be.
God. So yeah, the thing that is not ever shown on media is like the documentation element of what you all do. Like
Mhm.
it's so fascinating, the boots on the ground, and it feels like a puzzle game connecting the pieces and all of, like, the fun detective work. But
Mm-hmm.
how much of your day-to-day is documentation? Like the less sexy part of the work.
A lot.
A lot.
I
Yeah.
mean, there could
Yeah. When we talk to each other, we'll say, "What are you doing?" "Oh, documenting, you know." Yeah.
reports. What do you do?
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have
Reports.
okay, doing reports. Yes, that's our world. It's yes, I'm looking at my rectangle, clicking the buttons. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
doing that for another 6 hours because the reports and documentation is ultimately what allows these to be court admissible and useful moving forward, and not dotting the I's and crossing the T's ultimately is wasted time.
Yes. You could have to redo something because it wasn't properly documented.
Mm-hmm.
How often is that the case as you're training new investigators?
Oof. I don't know, not too often. I'd say other clients come to us and say that's what happened more than it happens within our own
Yeah.
organization. I mean, we keep a pretty close eye on any
Mm-hmm.
newbie.
Yes, like obviously, I've worked with a lot of businesses in my marketing career. Phoenix has their act together and it is a well-oiled machine in terms of processes. And that is not always the case. And that's like the thing behind the curtain at businesses that you can't see from the outside,
Mhm.
but you do see after you work through the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess that's like the proof's in the pudding with your client retention. When you work with someone, they generally keep coming back, and that's a testament to your internal processes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else that you want to say about that specific case? That's a wild series of events. I just cannot believe that you start a case with absolutely nothing and then it breaks with just a picture of someone's eyes that they post themselves.
Yeah. Just my main thing would be, don't give up. Well, we can do it. We can find it. There's ways. Just might take a little bit longer.
Yes, so it was definitely more on the, you're working hours and hours for months. I mean, it was a little more expensive than what most people would want to spend, but he needed that result. And, it took that much work to get it. It was constant monitoring of that social media. So some people would stop because it's not cost effective for them. But when you have a goal and you're determined to do something and we're just as determined, then the outcome is probably going to be good.
I mean, that's a great takeaway. And I think that's the reality of the service business is when someone is new to a service category, they're going to go with the cheapest option first almost every time.
Mhm.
And then you learn why it's the cheapest option because it's generally not going to solve the problem. And then you move on to a more persistent, more resource firm.
Right. With clients, I've gotten, and I'm sure you have too, and many clients that will call for a locate, and they'll say, "Oh, I looked online and I did one of those. I searched one of those, public record
Finder.
searches, Truth Finder, or yeah, like or whatever.
Yeah.
Just, um, but it's not right information, and it's not current information. I should say it was right at a certain time, maybe 10 years ago, five
Yes.
years ago, but it's not today.
It's not trustworthy. It's
Mhm.
not validated.
Well, if
It's
you scroll all the way down to the bottom where they have their little disclaimer, it says, um, "We in no way guarantee this information to be accurate or associated with the right person." So, I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes it can be accurate to an extent, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust it if you're doing something for a legal matter, especially.
no, the internet thinks that I own a logistics and trucking company in Florida or something,
Mhm.
and I don't, to my knowledge, I don't, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a good takeaway. And I think that that is why, one of Brian's kind of repetitious comments, and it just holds true every time, is like you start where others stop. It's just like, if you want the result, sometimes it's not cheap, but if you want a result, you're the people to call.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, we hit time. This has been really great. I really like the format of telling these stories from beginning to end, because it paints a picture of what it looks like. So I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Until next time.